gambling.
Oh, I know.
But wait, there's more. It's Unsportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance. CC back with us later in the week, along with Michelle Smallman, Evan Cohen with you. So, Jontay Porter is a player on the Toronto Raptors. His brother is more well-known than he is, Michael Porter Jr. of the world champion Denver Nuggets. Mm-hmm. So, Jontay Porter is now the subject of investigation by the NBA per Adrian Wojnarowski, Brian Windhorst, and David Purdom, our ESPN betting analyst. And the reason why? Purdom explained yesterday, Amber and Ian, 7P to 10P Eastern, here on ESPN Radio.
These irregularities were on prop bets involving Porter, and those are over-under on amount of points he scores in the game or number of rebounds, such things like that. And he, being a low-profile player, if there is a significant rise in interest in betting on him, all of a sudden something kind of red flags go up at sports books. And that's kind of what happened here. There were two games, one in January and one in March, where sports books detected irregular betting interest on player props. People were coming in there wanting to bet lots of money on the under on his props. In both of those games, Porter left with playing less than 10 minutes. The first game, he cited a lingering eye injury. The second game, which was just last week, Thursday, against the Kings, he said he had the flu. And in both of those games, sportsbooks said they took a lot of unusual betting interest on his player props.
Fascinating.
Yes.
And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. I would say 90+% of the audience probably never heard of Jontay Porter prior to this story, which means when you have significant betting coming in on a player that is not LeBron James or Giannis or Jokic or Tatum or any of the or his brother for that matter, Michael Porter Jr.,
yes,
or any of the superstar, star, or starters in this league, this is a guy that's a two-way player, which basically means, for those who are unaware, you have a contract simultaneously with the NBA team and its G League team, and there's a certain amount of games you could play for the NBA because you go back and forth. It's a developmental contract. Unders came in. He played less than 10 minutes in each of them, left one game with an eye injury, the other game with a flu or sickness, whatever it is. This is as suspicious as could be. I'm not accusing Smalls. I'm just saying this is unbelievably suspicious.
It is incredibly suspicious with the activity that was happening with bets surrounding Porter and then the subsequent results. Not only are the sports books flagging stuff like this, Evan, but sports betting is monitored by dedicated personnel from each NBA team. They have data scientists that are focused on different anomalies that are happening in sports betting and possible integrity issues, and they're working with third-party integrity monitors. So these players, when they're told you can't do all of this stuff, they have checks and balances, not only with just the sports book, but the NBA is monitoring this stuff as well. So if, in fact, Porter was involved in this in some way, shape, or form, I don't know how he thought he was going to get away with something like this when you have all of these people that are making sure that this stuff is up to snuff, essentially, and that there's no integrity issues with betting in sports.
Let me be real clear when I say this. I think this is a phenomenal thing for the NBA.
Why?
I think this is excellent because this was bound to happen. At some point, this was bound to happen, where a player was going to try to take advantage of the opportunities that he would have to be able to bet on games or have friends bet on prop bets, whatever it may be.
Have influence over the results.
Influence over the results. And what this tells everyone is that if you do it, we're going to notice it. If you do it, we're going to find out. If you do it, we have people that are going to tell us immediately. When Calvin Ridley, now of the Titans, had his situation with gambling with the Atlanta Falcons and got suspended on the 7-team parlay or whatever it was, whoever it is that he bet with notified the NFL immediately. Irregularities are spotted absolutely immediately. As crazy as this may sound, the gambling industry has no choice but to be clean. If it's legal, it has no choice but to be clean because there are so many people that want to shut it down and want to tell you it's not clean, that specifically, whether it's ESPN Bet or DraftKings or FanDuel or any of the sites that are out there, if they notice an irregularity around a random NBA player and betting unders and that guy on a prop bet and that guy does not even stay in the game for a long period of time, it is their entire business if they don't actually notify authorities for that. So while I'm not suggesting it's good that an NBA player would gamble on a sport, obviously, or the sport and the game that he's playing in, I think it is great that the NBA could sit there and say, we have measures in place for that rogue player that if he allegedly may have gone rogue, we are going to find you. We're going to find you quickly. We're going to come down on you quickly, and you may never play again in this league. And if this is proven to be true, and Jontay Porter actually had involvement in this, and I'm not suggesting he did. I'm saying it's very suspicious. I'm not accusing. He will never play another game in the NBA. They will ban him for life, and message, to some extent, will be sent. It's like, the NFL with concussions. All these years, they went unnoticed. In a way, the rise in number of concussion cases actually means the NFL is doing this right, and that you're noticing them and you're preventing them and you're making sure that those players don't go back in the game. The NBA and all sports have to realize when these things happen, if they are to happen, and noticing it right away, I think, Smalls, is a great thing for the sport.
It does send a warning shot to everyone else around the league because players, as well as all league employees, are prohibited from betting on NBA bets, including prop bets, right? So violation of this policy could include fines, suspension, and possible termination of contracts. So you think if Porter is found to be involved in this in any way, shape, or form, done. Termination of contract,
done.
That they're going to take this
ban for life,
most serious measure
ban for life.
to make a statement here.
Ban for life. You don't?
I think it would be smart of them to do that. You're right, to set the standard.
And sorry, offense, Jontay Porter, you're not good enough for them to think otherwise.
It's not as if this happened to a marquee name.
Yeah, I don't even want to suggest the marquee name would have done this.
Same thing. I didn't want to throw anyone out there.
Right. So let's say name that we could say right now that you would all know if he bet on sports or bet on the NBA.
How about this? It's not the same as what Shohei Ohtani is being accused of in baseball.
Yeah,
the star power is not the same.
Exactly right. It is a lot harder for Major League Baseball to sit here and investigate knowing, oh boy, if we find this out that allegedly, possibly he had anything hypothetically to do with this, we're going to have no choice but to Pete Rose him. That's a nightmare for this sport. An absolute nightmare.
It would be so bad.
I almost wonder, as crazy as this sounds, if Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, wants this to be true. Because then you can ban him. Then you can say, look, we are going to find you and ban you for life if you do this. If you bet over-unders on basketball, if you are going to influence any of this in any way, shape, or form, it is easy for us to figure it out because we are actually tied in legally to all of these different gambling companies because they know if they have illegal activities, they are going to be shut down forever. And billions on the line for these companies.
Absolutely. This only works if people who are going to place these bets and that are actively wagering think that everything is up to code and that the integrity of each league and the integrity of this business is intact. Because if you thought that people were influencing the results, why would you gamble? So it puts all of this under a cloud of suspicion and makes it more of a fragile entity, which is the exact opposite of what sports wants and what the betting world wants. But I think you're right in that if this is found out to be true, that they should approach this with the most severe punishment possible because that tells everyone else around the league, players included, here's a tangible example of what is going to happen if you mess with us or try to push us on this. You are going to be out of this game forever. It's a privilege to play in this league, and if you violate this rule, which is set in stone, you are not going to be able to play anymore.
And think about this. Tonight, I believe we have on ESPN the Lakers and the Bucks, if I'm not mistaken. That is a game that everyone's going to want to keep eyes on, right? Even if LeBron doesn't play. We're talking about a March 20th game between the Sacramento Kings and Toronto Raptors with Jontay Porter. They're going to find you if you do things like this. Mm-hmm. And as crazy as it may sound to some people, because we all grew up at people around our age, Smalls, thinking like, oh, gambling is like dirty and icky. And I'm not saying it hasn't been. But the legalization of it has made ESPN Bet, DraftKings, FanDuel, whomever, have no choice but to be as legal, moral, and have the integrity that these businesses have more than most walks of life. They don't have a choice. If some other company had some sort of fraud going on, if a credit card company had fraud going on,